I've learned since Trump has been elected office, that the deep state is real.
Absolutely.
And they do not want Donald Trump to be president. They didn't want him in 2016.
Right.
They didn't want him in 2020. They did everything in their power to get him out of office.
Right.
And they're going to do everything in their power to do it again in 2024.
Several days later.
The new ABC News Washington Post poll suggests former President Trump has a stronger than ever lead over President Biden, 51 to 42% in a hypothetical head-to-head 2024 matchup. So let's go ahead and bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein. Good morning to you, Rick. So good to see you there. So the big question right now, is President Biden in trouble?
Gio, these numbers are really rough across the board for President Biden across a range of issue areas. And on that big number, 51-42, I should note that is well outside of what we've seen in other recent polls. This poll is an outlier. Other recent polls, our partners at 538 have done an analysis that have it more like a 1 or 2 point race. But whether you think this is going to be a couple of points in either direction, you have to recognize that right now the country is frustrated. Looking inside this poll, the perceptions of the economy are just plain bad. Right now, we have about 30% of the country only saying that they approve of the way that the president is handling the economy. Vast disapproval, and almost a majority of the country saying they're actually worse off than they were at the beginning of the Biden presidency. That's extremely hard to come back from. So, look, no one thinks this is going to be a 9 or 10 point race, but I think there's a lot of alarm bells sounding in Democratic circles.
President Biden has been touting a strong economy led by his administration's policies as the cornerstone to his re-election bid.
America has the strongest economy in the world.
Despite low unemployment, cooling inflation, and so far avoiding a recession, Americans overwhelmingly say they are not feeling good about the economy and that the president is to blame. Just 30% approve of his performance on the economy, a career low, largely dragged down by pocketbook issues for families, like food prices that have risen 4.3% since last year. Our poll showing more than 9 in 10 Americans rating them negatively. Voters across the country telling ABC News they are frustrated.
Costs a lot more to buy a loaf of bread these days.
We're all trying to survive. We can't even work 2 jobs at this point and try to make it.
I don't think that anybody is really paying attention to the working man.
Nearly as many upset about gas and energy prices after a brutally hot summer. The national average for a gallon of unleaded gasoline this week hitting $3.88 per gallon, according to AAA, the highest level in nearly a year.
We just drove through California yesterday. Gas was $6.39 a gallon.
And that's ridiculous, in my opinion.
People can't afford rent.
And it's not just the economy. The other hot button issue, immigration. Our poll shows only 23% approve of his handling of the situation, another career low. All this putting his job approval rating 19 points underwater, one of many challenges facing the incumbent president in his quest for re-election.
Trump with a 9-point lead over President Biden in that poll, and whatever caveats, whether that is an outlier, that's a tough one to spin. The message may be out there, but they're not feeling it.
Well, yeah, 13 million jobs created, lower prescription drug prices. You hear all of this great news, and then you go into the grocery store and you try to, you're still in the aisle where they sell the vegetables and the fruit. You haven't even turned around to the meat, and already you've spent $70. They're not feeling it. Yeah, you can say a lot, as James Brown would say, talking loud and saying nothing. But at the end of the day, there's more than enough time to turn all of this bad weather around and go out there and make your case to the American people.
Sarah, should they be panicking?
The economy's been getting better, and Joe Biden's numbers have been getting worse. That tells you something about what the American people are trying to tell these pollsters. Set aside the individual questions. The Democratic Party, though, has a really serious problem, which is there's no one on the bench. You know, you look more in that poll, do you want Harris to be the nominee? No. Do you want Buttigieg? No. Someone else got 20%. The Democrats have had a historically weak bench for the last 10 plus years. It's because everyone's Joe Biden's age. So there's no one to replace Biden on the ticket. And so they're stuck with him a little bit, and his numbers keep going down and his appearances keep getting worse.
And speaking of that age, they talk about as such a huge factor. Obviously, he can't do anything about that, but he does keep saying, just look at me, and people look at him.
Right, and this poll is the result of what they see, right? That when you have an unfixable issue like that, right? You cannot make the president younger. You can change his appearance on the margins, but not by a lot. What do you do with that? And what the White House is essentially doing is asking Democrats to just factor that in as a massive risk for 2024 and saying we'll deal with the rest of this, that we're confident that we can take on Donald Trump. And maybe they're right to be relatively confident that they can take on Donald Trump. But when you have a summer of Bidenomics messaging and the result at the end of that is the numbers that you see in this poll, that should be pretty alarming for Democrats. And just to Sarah's point about the Democratic bench, it's true that the party doesn't have a sort of deep bench of people tested at the national level. There are a lot of governors, a lot of senators who have won tough races. And if the value proposition is an incumbent president with the numbers in that poll, with the American people saying so consistently they don't want him to run for re-election, versus a promising but relatively untested character like a Gretchen Whitmer or a Raphael Warnock, I don't think it's so obvious that the safe bet is to stick with the guy.
We found an enthusiasm gap between the two parties. We asked folks on a scale of 1 to 10, how enthusiastic are you about the presidential election? And you can see Republican to Democrat, there is a gap right there. Where's the lag for Democrats? We found a couple places. Non-white voters, you could see significantly less enthusiastic than white voters. And then how about this age gap? The youngest group of voters who Democrats have been trying to get excited and motivated, a nearly 50-point gap there.
So really an uphill battle to try to make sure voters don't stay home if you're Democrats.
Yeah, that's it. And the problem for Democrats, too, the lack of enthusiasm about the election, there's clearly a lack of enthusiasm about the president himself, because we asked primary voters on the Democratic side, do you want options next year besides Biden? 59% said yes, they do. This is not a normal number for an incumbent. We asked the same question a year before Donald Trump sought re-election of Republicans. Only 37% wanted more choices then. That's a very high number.
Meanwhile,
what do you say to the 44% of Americans who say they are worse off now than they were before Biden took office?
Well, look, we all know the economic pressure that Americans have felt when the president took office. The economy was flat on its back. But we're also getting extraordinary results. More than 13 million jobs created. That's more than any presidential term in American history. And yes, it takes a while for people to feel the full benefits of those results, just like it's going to take a while to build all of the infrastructure that we're now underway on with the president's generational infrastructure bill. But he got the bill done after president, Congress after Congress couldn't make it happen. He did. We're getting the results on the economy.
Mika, it's true. I mean, remember after Iowa?
Yeah.
He was dead. Remember after New Hampshire? Mocked, ridiculed, dead. After Nevada, there's no way he can come back. He went South Carolina, he wins the nomination. We heard the same thing. He's too old. He's living in his basement. He stopped up. He can't get out of his basement. He's going to lose. And then election night, oh, well, Trump's going to win this state and that state. Now things wrong. And then progressives, as well as Trumpers, wrong for 2 years about bipartisan. I'm just telling you, maybe these polls are right. Well, they're not right. It's not 9 points. Morning Joe betting syndicate will take all of your bets right now. Like if you want to take the +9 on Joe Biden, no, Biden's not going to lose by 9 points. This is a close race, and there are warning signs there. I will say though, I'm a little tired of it. I'm a little tired of 3 years hearing about how Joe Biden's going to get crushed. He's going to get crushed in 2020. He and the Democrats are going to get crushed in 2022. There's going to be a red wave. There's no way he can pass bipartisan legislation. He passes more than anybody this century. And it just keeps going on and on.
There's a bunch of things at play. And to jump on what you're saying, if these truth tellers would say, you know, it doesn't look good, these polls don't look good, but we've been here before. Let me give some context historically. Look what happened the last time. He was underestimated. And also in terms of his age, look at what President Biden is doing. Go through his schedule. Look at the things that he has accomplished. List them. And then talk about a man his age and what he is able to do at his age, since age is relative. And as for Donald Trump, I think that there has got to be a point where if you're an organization that works around debating the issues and following the truth, I don't know why there are extensive interviews with this man when he cannot even admit he lost the election. Like, that would be the end of any interview anywhere, or it should be. And instead, he pontificates and rolls over people with lies, and people continue to put him on as if he is a truth teller.
You look at Jonathan.
And he's not a truth.
They're going to do everything in their power to belittle his candidacy or his presidency. He's a racist, he's white percent, Russia, this, that, the other. They're going to play clips of January 6th. It's just going to happen over and over and over again. How does someone like Trump combat the media, big tech, Hollywood? How does he even go against that at this point?
The good news is, I said I was a cautious pessimistic, but the good news is Donald Trump, Republicans now have almost half the Hispanic vote. Donald Trump got elected with 8% of the black vote in 2016. When he ran in 2020, he got 12%. That's a 50% increase. He got 20% of the black male vote. People are waking up. They're seeing the nonsense. And they're seeing their pocketbook. They go to the gas station, they go to the store, they're paying a lot more for the same stuff. And you can call Donald Trump all sorts of names if you want. All I know is I'm paying a lot more for gas. I'm paying a lot more for chicken, for bacon, for milk, for egg, for cheese than I did before.
Yeah, but that's grassroots. How do you handle the top? Okay, so there's bottom up and then top down. So the top down, the media, Hollywood, big tech, FBI, everything, even clearly the deep state. How does he combat that? Because the fear is it's just going to be this antagonistic, vindictive relationship.
The good news, the trust in the media has never been lower, and that's because Donald Trump has popularized the expression fake news and disinformation. You combat it by telling the truth and by standing your ground, which is why people love Donald Trump so much. He's a fighter.
So it sounds like even though you're running for president, he has your vote.
If he becomes a nominee, he has my vote.